David, a 60-year-old man with a face etched by the wrinkles of a hard-lived life, found himself wandering the city streets, desperately begging for food. His tattered and dirty clothes were a testament to the harsh reality he faced daily. Despite dedicating his life to raising his 4 children, Alexander, Beatrix, Charles, and Diana, they had abandoned him, leaving him with barely enough to survive. With every step, David nostalgically remembered his late wife, Maria, and their shared joyous times. Maria had been the love of his life, but she had passed away many years ago due to an incurable disease. Since then, David had poured his heart and soul into caring for his children, working long hours in a factory to provide for their every need. As his children grew older, they began to drift away from him. Alexander, the eldest, became a successful lawyer but was always too busy to visit his father. Beatrix married a wealthy man and severed all ties with her family. Charles, the third child, fell into the world of drugs and ended up in jail, blaming David for his problems. Diana, the youngest, ran away from home at 18 to pursue her dreams in the big city, never looking back. Despite his efforts to keep his family together, David's efforts were in vain. Now, in his old age, he found himself alone and helpless, relying on the charity of strangers to survive. He struggled to find something to eat and a safe place to sleep every day. Despite everything, David did not complain. He had learned to accept life as it came and found the strength to keep going. In his most difficult moments, he remembered the words of his beloved Maria. "Life may be hard, but there is always hope. Never give up, my love," Maria had always told him. As David walked the streets, he clung to those words like a lifeline. He knew that, somehow, things would get better. He had to believe that there was a reason for everything that had happened and that, in the end, he would find the peace and happiness he longed for. With an empty stomach and a heart full of memories, David continued his journey, begging for food from passersby. Some ignored him, others gave him coins, but no one stopped to listen to his story. To them, he was just another homeless older man, one of the many who wandered the city. But David knew he was much more than that. He was a father, a husband, a fighter. And as long as he had a breath of life left, he would carry on, hoping that someday his children would return to him and they could be a family again. With that thought in mind, David approached a group of people leaving a restaurant, his hand outstretched and a plea on his lips. "Please, can I have something to eat? I haven't had a bite all day." His voice trembled slightly, but his eyes shone with determination. No matter how many times he was turned down, he would keep trying because that's what a true fighter did. In a twist of fate, a sleek car pulled up next to him as David stood in front of the fancy restaurant. The driver's window slowly rolled down, revealing a man in his 50s, dressed in an impeccable suit, with a vaguely familiar face. It was Michael, a successful businessman who happened to be an old neighbor David had helped as a child. Michael had grown up in the same humble neighborhood as David, but their paths had parted many years ago. While David struggled to provide for his family, Michael managed to get ahead thanks to his intelligence and determination. Now, he owned one of the most successful businesses in the city. Upon recognizing David, Michael's eyes filled with emotion. Michael remembered vividly how, as a little boy, David had defended him from bullies who constantly picked on him. From that day on, Michael had admired David's strength and kindness, always wanting to find a way to thank him. Without hesitation, Michael got out of the car and approached David. "David, is that you?" he asked, his voice a mixture of surprise and joy. David, confused at first, took a few seconds to recognize Michael. When he finally did, a tired smile crossed his face. "Michael, my boy, long time no see," said David, trying to hide the embarrassment of being found in such a situation. Michael, moved by his old friend's plight, hugged him tightly. "I can't believe it's you, David. What happened to you? Why are you begging for food on the street?" With tears in his eyes, David recounted the story of his wife's passing, the ingratitude of his children, and how he had ended up on the streets. Michael listened intently, his heart aching with every word. He could not believe someone as good as David had endured so much suffering. Without a second thought, Michael made a decision. "David, I can't allow you to go on living like this. Come with me. I am offering you a job at my company. I know you are a hard-working and honest man, and I want to help you get back on your feet." Surprised by Michael's generosity, David didn't know what to say at first. He had spent so much time struggling alone that he had forgotten what it felt like to have someone care about him. With tear-filled eyes, he accepted Michael's offer, seeing an opportunity to improve his life. As he climbed into Michael's car, David couldn't help but think of his children. Despite all the pain they had caused him, he still loved them with all his heart. He wondered if someday they would realize how much he needed them and reunite as a family. But for now, David focused on the present. With Michael's help, he could start over, regain his dignity, and find the happiness he had longed for. As the car drove away, David looked out the window, watching the streets that had been his home for so long fade into the distance. It was time to write a new chapter in his life. While David was starting his new life, working in Michael's company on the other side of the world. David's youngest daughter, Sarah, was in a bustling European city when she received an unexpected call. Michael had managed to locate her after an exhaustive search. Sarah, a 25-year-old woman, had left home 7 years ago to pursue her dream of becoming a successful photographer. Despite initial difficulties, she had entered the competitive art world and was now working for a prestigious fashion magazine. Sarah was surprised to hear Michael's voice when she answered the call. She hadn't seen him since she was a little girl, and memories of her childhood in the humble neighborhood flooded her mind. Michael bluntly told her about her father's situation and asked for help caring for him. Sarah was speechless. She had been so focused on her career that she had lost touch with her family. She knew her siblings had gone their separate ways, and her father had been left alone, but she never imagined things getting to such a dire point. With a lump in her throat, Sarah listened as Michael described the state in which he had found David: emaciated, hungry, and homeless. Guilt and remorse invaded her heart. How could she have abandoned her father like that? Despite the distance and the time that had passed, Sarah had always felt a special affection for her father. She remembered how David had supported her when she decided to pursue her passion for photography, even when the rest of the family criticized her for choosing such an uncertain path. Upon learning of her father's plight, Sarah knew she had to do something. She couldn't let David continue to suffer, not after all he had done for her. Without a second thought, Sarah made a decision that would change her life forever. She packed her things, quit her job, and bought a plane ticket to return to her hometown. She knew it wouldn't be easy to face the past and deal with her dysfunctional family dynamics, but she was willing to do whatever it took to help her father. During the long flight, Sarah reflected on her life and her decision. She realized that in pursuing professional success, she had neglected the most important thing, her family. Now, she was determined to make amends. As the plane touched down, Sarah's heart raced with a mixture of anxiety and determination. She was about to embark on a journey not just to save her father but to rebuild the family ties that had been broken over the years. She had the opportunity to make up for her mistakes and lost time. When she finally landed in her hometown, Sarah felt a mixture of emotions: fear, anxiety, and hope. Hope that she could reconnect with her father, heal the wounds of the past, and build a future together. Leaving the airport, Sarah took a cab and gave the driver the address of Michael's company. She knew she would find her father there and could begin the long road to reconciliation. As the cab made its way through the familiar streets, Sarah looked out the window, remembering the happy moments of her childhood and imagining what the future held. She was ready to face whatever came because she knew that no matter what, her love for her father would be her guiding force. With renewed determination, Sarah prepared for the most important reunion of her life. Meanwhile, David began his first day of work at Michael's company with a mixture of nerves and excitement. Despite his age and the years he had spent on the streets, David was determined to prove himself and make the most of this second chance life had given him. Michael assigned him a position in the maintenance department, where David could apply the skills and knowledge he had acquired throughout his life. From the first moment, he threw himself body and soul into his work, arriving early and staying late to ensure everything was in perfect order. Initially skeptical about the presence of an older man with no recent experience, His co-workers soon began to see David as a dedicated and loyal worker. His tireless work ethic and ever-positive attitude earned him the respect and friendship of everyone around him. Little by little, David gained confidence in himself. He no longer felt like the homeless older man begging for food on the streets but a valued and appreciated man. The stability of a decent job and the support of Michael and his co-workers gave him hope for a better future. However, David's happiness was tarnished when his other children learned about his new job. Seeing that their father was getting ahead without their help, Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles began to plan how to retake his money. The lawyer, Alexander, saw the situation as an opportunity to manipulate his father and gain access to his new income. Beatrix, for her part, planned to convince David to invest in a fraudulent business to keep the money for herself. Unaware of her siblings' intentions, Sarah arrived at Michael's company with her heart pounding. As she walked through the door, she spotted David working diligently. The sight of him brought tears to her eyes. She approached him slowly, calling out, "Dad?" David turned, seeing Sarah, his face lit up with surprise and joy. "Sarah, is it you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes, Dad, it's me," Sarah replied, tears streaming down her face as she hugged him tightly. "I'm so sorry for everything. I'm here now, and I want to help." David held her close, feeling a sense of relief and happiness. "Oh, my dear Sarah, I've missed you so much. It's so good to see you." Michael, witnessing the heartfelt reunion, stepped forward. "Sarah, it's good to see you again. Your father has been doing an incredible job here." "Thank you, Michael," Sarah said gratefully. "Thank you for everything you've done for him." As father and daughter reunited, a new chapter began for David. With Sarah by his side, he felt more hopeful than ever. Together, they could face the challenges ahead, including the deceitful plans of Alexander and Beatrix. They would rebuild their family with love and determination and create a future filled with happiness and stability. David knew the road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to embrace whatever came next. He had the support of his daughter and the promise of a better tomorrow. And as the sun set on that transformative day, David looked forward to the dawn of a new beginning. Charles, desperate for money to support his addiction, was willing to resort to any means necessary. Oblivious to his son's dark plans, David continued to work hard and enjoy his new life. Every day, he felt more grateful for the opportunity Michael had given him and for the affection his co-workers showed him. One day, while David was organizing some supplies in the company's warehouse, he overheard a conversation between two of his colleagues. They were talking about a rumor circulating in the company, suggesting that Michael was hiding a secret about his past. Intrigued, David couldn't help but wonder what secret his benefactor might be keeping. Could it have something to do with the reason Michael had decided to help him, or was it something else entirely? Although David knew it was none of his business, curiosity grew. Meanwhile, Sarah, who had arrived in the city a few days ago, was staying in a nearby hotel, planning to approach her father after so many years of absence. She knew it would not be easy, but she was determined to rebuild their relationship and protect him from harm. David and Sarah didn't realize that their paths were about to cross unexpectedly and that together, they would have to face fate's challenges. David's future was uncertain, as was the threat of greedy sons and the mystery of Michael's past. But with the love of his daughter and the friendship of Michael, maybe, just maybe, he could find the strength to overcome any obstacle. Nervous but determined, Sarah headed to Michael's company to reunite with her father after 7 long years. Her heart pounded as she walked through the halls, looking for the maintenance department where David worked. When she finally found it, Sarah hesitated momentarily at the door. How would her father react to seeing her? Would he hold a grudge for her abandonment? Taking a deep breath, Sarah gathered her courage and entered the room. David, concentrating on his work, looked up when he heard footsteps. When his eyes fell on Sarah, he froze for a moment. "Sarah?" he whispered, as if not believing his eyes. "Dad, it's me," Sarah replied, trembling. "I'm so sorry for everything. I came back to make things right." Tears welled up in David's eyes as he stepped toward her. "My dear Sarah, I've missed you so much." They embraced tightly, both crying and holding each other as if afraid to let go. "I'm here now, Dad. I won't leave you again." Just as they began to speak, Michael entered the room, his face lighting up at the sight of their reunion. "Sarah, I'm glad you made it," he said warmly. Sarah nodded, still holding her father. "Thank you, Michael, for everything you've done." Michael smiled, but a shadow crossed his face as he glanced at David. "There's something we need to discuss," he said, his tone serious. Sarah and David looked at each other, then back at Michael. "What is it?" David asked, concern creeping into his voice. Michael took a deep breath. "There are things from my past that I need to explain, especially considering the current situation with your children and other matters." David's curiosity was piqued. "Go on." Michael sat down, his expression somber. "When I was young, I made decisions I'm not proud of. Decisions that affected people in ways I never intended. It's time you both knew the truth." As Michael revealed his past, Sarah and David listened intently, their bond growing stronger with each word. They knew they would face many challenges ahead, but together, with love, determination, and the support of true friends, they believed they could overcome anything. The journey to healing and redemption was beginning, and with it, the promise of a brighter future. He thought he was dreaming. Could it be his daughter after all this time? With tears in her eyes, Sarah ran to her father and hugged him tightly. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should never have left you alone," she whispered between sobs. Still stunned by the surprise, David reciprocated the embrace, feeling love and emotion wash over him. Father and daughter melted into an embrace filled with tears and apologies for the next few minutes. Sarah told David about her life abroad and how she had succeeded as a photographer. David, in turn, told her about the difficult years he had gone through and how Michael's help had given him a new opportunity. Together, they laughed and cried, making up for lost time. David marveled at the strong and courageous woman his little Sarah had become while she admired her father's resilience and kindness despite all the hardships he had faced. However, the happiness of the reunion is marred when Sarah tells David about her brother's plans. She had intercepted messages and overheard conversations that revealed Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles's true intentions. They were determined to take advantage of their father's new financial stability for their benefit. Though hurt by his children's betrayal, David was not entirely surprised. He knew that greed and selfishness had long ago corrupted their hearts. But now, with Sarah by his side, he felt more robust and capable of facing adversity. Together, father and daughter hatched a plan to protect David and unmask his siblings' machinations. With her cunning and determination, Sarah would gather evidence and seek legal help, while David would continue to work hard and keep a low profile. As they delved deeper into this new mission, David couldn't stop thinking about the mystery surrounding Michael. What secret was his benefactor hiding, and why had he decided to help him in the first place? David knew he had to uncover the truth, not just out of curiosity but because he sensed it could be crucial to understanding Michael's past and the connection that bound them together. With Sarah by his side and a new determination in his heart, David prepared himself to face the challenges ahead. He knew the road would not be easy, but he was willing to fight for his family, his dignity, and the truth. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Michael stared at an old photograph in the solitude of his office. In it, two children were smiling at the camera, oblivious to the dark secrets surrounding them. Michael sighed, knowing that soon he would have to face the ghosts of his past and reveal the truth he had hidden for so long. Fate had unexpectedly intertwined the lives of David, Sarah, and Michael, and now, together, they were about to embark on a journey of redemption, justice, and the uncovering of long-buried secrets. The bond they shared, strengthened by love and determination, would guide them through the trials ahead and, perhaps, led them to the peace and happiness they all longed for. They would need to unravel the mysteries and overcome the obstacles in their path. Only time would reveal whether their love, friendship, and determination would be strong enough to conquer greed, deceit, and the hidden secrets of the past. With a plan in place, David and Sarah are prepared to confront the greedy siblings and protect David's future. However, they hadn't anticipated the cunning and resolve of Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles, who had already devised their scheme to keep their father's money. Alexander, leveraging his connections in the legal world, had obtained confidential information about David's finances and Michael's company. Armed with this knowledge, the three siblings met in secret to plot their strategy. "We have to act fast," Alexander said, a mischievous glint in his eye. "If we push Papa hard enough, I'm sure he'll relent and give us what we want." Beatrix nodded, a smirk playing on her lips. "And if he refuses, we can always threaten to reveal the secrets we've discovered about Michael. That will surely make him reconsider." Charles, desperate for money to feed his next fix, agreed eagerly. "Let's do it. We can't waste any more time." With that, the three siblings set their plan into motion. Putting their plan into action, the siblings began sending threatening messages to David, demanding that he hand over part of his salary and give them access to the company's accounts. They also hinted that they knew something shady about Michael's past and would not hesitate to expose him if their demands were unmet. David, upon receiving these messages, was devastated. Despite all the pain his children had caused him, he never imagined they would go this far. He felt betrayed and hurt but determined not to give in to their blackmail. Sarah, seeing her father's suffering, was filled with anger. She couldn't believe her brothers would be willing to hurt David in such a way after all he had done for them. With Michael's help, she began to investigate further, looking for evidence that could be used against her brothers. Meanwhile, David continued to work hard at the company, trying to keep his mind busy and not dwell on the painful situation with his children. His co-workers, noticing his distress, were supportive and understanding, reminding him he was not alone. One day, while David was on his break, he received a text message from an unknown number. The message read, "I know what your children are doing. I can help you stop them. Meet me at Central Park at 6 p.m. Come alone." Intrigued and scared, David decided to go to the mysterious appointment. When he arrived at the park, he saw a hooded figure on a secluded bench waiting for him. As he approached, the figure removed their hood, revealing their identity. It was Lauren, Alexander's ex-wife. With tears in her eyes, Lauren told David how she had discovered his children's plans and decided to help him. She handed him an envelope containing incriminating evidence, emails, recordings of conversations, and financial documents proving the illegal activities of Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles. David, touched by Lauren's gesture, thanked her from the bottom of his heart. With this evidence, he and Sarah could finally stand up to the children and protect their future. But just when they thought everything was settled, they received a call from Michael. In trembling, he told them that Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles had broken into his office, looking for information to blackmail him. Amid the chaos, they had discovered the secret Michael had been keeping for so long. David and Sarah, worried about their friend, knew they had to act quickly to prevent further damage. Rushed to the company, David and Sarah knew it was time to face the truth and deal with the painful consequences. With love and support for each other as their strength, they were ready for the next chapter of their story. David and Sarah arrived at Michael's company, hearts pounding, fearing what they might find. As they entered Michael's office, they saw his three children rifling through drawers and files, triumph plastered on their faces. "Ah!" exclaimed Alexander, holding an old document. "I knew there was something shady in your past, Michael, and now we have the proof." Michael looked at David and Sarah sadly, his face pale and eyes filled with pain. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never meant for you to find out this way." David, confused and worried, approached his friend. "What are they talking about, Michael? What is that document?" With a shaky sigh, Michael sat back in his chair and began to tell his story. "Many years ago, when I was young and ambitious, I made a terrible mistake. I was desperate to succeed in business and made a decision that has haunted me ever since." Michael revealed how he had falsified documents and deceived investors to raise funds for his first company. Although he had managed to build a legitimate empire, he had always feared that his past would catch up with him. "When I saw you on the street, David, I realized it was time to face my demons. I wanted to help you, not only to thank you for what you had done for me when we were kids but also to find a way to redeem myself." David, touched by Michael's sincerity, put a hand on his shoulder. Michael, we all make mistakes. The important thing is what we do to make amends. You have given me a second chance and have been a true friend. That's what matters. Sarah, with tears in her eyes, hugged Michael. Don't worry, we'll find a solution together. You are not alone in this. But Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles were unwilling to let this opportunity pass. They threatened to expose Michael's past with malicious smiles if he didn't hand over a large sum of money and a stake in the company. I always knew there was something fishy about you, Michael, Beatrix scoffed. Warehouse on the outskirts of the city shrouded in darkness and silence. Armed with determination and driven by the love for his daughter, David, Michael, and their trusted allies devised a plan to rescue Sarah. They arrived at the warehouse under the cover of night, ready to confront whatever dangers awaited them. David's heart pounded with fear and resolve as they approached the building. Michael, equally determined, gave David a reassuring nod. Quietly, they went inside, navigating through the dimly lit corridors. The tension was palpable, but their focus was unwavering. Finally, they reached a large room where Sarah was being held, tied to a chair, her eyes filled with fear and hope as she saw her father and Michael. Without hesitation, David and Michael sprang into action. They overpowered the guards quickly, their determination giving them an edge. As they untied Sarah, she threw her arms around her father, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Dad, she whispered, her voice trembling. I knew you would come for me. We'll always be here for you, David replied, his voice choked with emotion. Let's get you out of here. As they made their way back to safety, the relief was overwhelming. But they knew this wasn't the end. Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles still needed to be dealt with once and for all. The following day, David and Michael presented the evidence to the authorities with the support of Sarah and their legal team. The case against Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles was solid. The incriminating documents, recordings, and witness testimonies left no room for doubt. The three siblings were arrested and charged with multiple crimes, including kidnapping, blackmail, and fraud. Despite the legal battles ahead, David, Sarah, and Michael felt a sense of peace and closure. They had faced their darkest fears and emerged stronger together. With a renewed sense of purpose, Michael vowed to rebuild his life and make amends for his past mistakes. Grateful for the unwavering support of his daughter and friend, David looked forward to a future filled with hope and determination. They knew that no obstacle was insurmountable as long as they stood by each other. As they walked out of the courthouse, the sun shining brightly, they felt a weight lifted off their shoulders. They had faced the truth, confronted their fears, and emerged victorious. Together, they were ready to embrace the future, no matter its challenges. With love, strength, and unity, David, Sarah, and Michael stepped into the next chapter of their lives, confident their bond would guide them through whatever lay ahead. They went to the hospital and recovered swiftly. They knew this ordeal had forged an unbreakable bond between them that would help them face any future challenges. As the ambulance sped towards the hospital, David, despite his pain, felt a profound sense of relief. His daughter was safe, and justice was finally within reach. Sarah held his hand tightly, tears of gratitude and love in her eyes. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. You saved me. Nothing in this world could keep me from protecting you, David replied, strained but filled with emotion. Michael, riding alongside them, kept a watchful eye on his friend. He knew the physical and emotional healing journey would be long, but he was ready to support David and Sarah every step of the way. Once at the hospital, David was quickly taken into surgery to treat his wound. Sarah and Michael waited anxiously, their hearts heavy but hopeful. The doctors assured them that David would fully recover, which brought a wave of relief. While David recuperated, Sarah and Michael focused on ensuring that Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles faced the consequences of their actions. With the overwhelming evidence against them, the siblings were arrested and charged with a series of crimes, including kidnapping, extortion, and fraud. Their trial was swift, and justice was served as they were sentenced to lengthy prison terms. Throughout the legal proceedings, Sarah and Michael remained steadfast, drawing strength from their shared purpose and their love for David. The community rallied around them, offering support and encouragement, fortifying their resolve. As David healed, he reflected on the events that had transpired. Despite the pain and betrayal, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The ordeal not only revealed the true character of his children but also reinforced the unbreakable bond with Sarah and his loyal friendship with Michael. David was welcomed home with open arms upon his release from the hospital. A small celebration was held, filled with friends and well-wishers who had stood by their side through the tumultuous times. The atmosphere was one of joy and renewed hope. David, Sarah, and Michael sat together, looking at the horizon peacefully. They knew that life would continue to present challenges, but they were ready to face them head-on. Their love, loyalty, and determination had seen them through the darkest times, and they were confident it would guide them through whatever lay ahead. With a smile, David raised a toast. To family, to friends, and the future. May we always stand strong together. Sarah and Michael clinked their glasses with his, their hearts full of hope and gratitude. Together, they were ready to embrace the future, knowing that no obstacle was too significant when faced with love and unity. The legal system swiftly took action. Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles were charged with multiple crimes, including kidnapping, blackmail, and fraud. Their trial was expedited, and with the overwhelming evidence provided by Lauren and the courageous testimonies of David, Sarah, and Michael, the siblings were found guilty and sentenced to long prison terms. David's return home marked the beginning of a new chapter. The community, moved by the family's ordeal, rallied around them, offering support and encouragement. Neighbors and friends visited regularly, bringing meals and helping with chores, ensuring David could focus on his recovery. Despite the trauma and betrayal, David found solace in the unwavering support of Sarah and Michael. Their presence gave him the strength to heal, not just physically but emotionally as well. Each day, Sarah and Michael took turns caring for David, helping him with his exercises, and ensuring he took his medication. During this time, David and Sarah began to rebuild their relationship, finding a deeper connection than ever before. They spent long hours talking, reminiscing about happier times, and making plans for the future. Michael, too, became an integral part of this new phase, strengthening his bond with David through shared experiences and mutual respect. As David's health improved, he decided to address his past mistakes. He collaborated with Michael to ensure that all business practices were transparent and ethical. They introduced new policies at the company to prevent any form of malpractice, determined to turn a new leaf. Inspired by her father and Michael's dedication, Sarah took an active role in the company. She used her skills and passion to drive positive change, ensuring the business prospered and contributed positively to the community. The ordeal had taught them the actual value of love, loyalty, and integrity. David, Sarah, and Michael worked together as colleagues and as a family united by their experiences. They supported each other through the challenges, celebrating each milestone and overcoming every setback together. The future, though uncertain, held promise. David knew they could face any challenge with Sarah and Michael by his side. Their bond, tested by fire, emerged more robust and resilient. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, enjoying the tranquility and the beauty of the setting sun, David raised his glass. To the family, to forgiveness, and the future. We've come through the worst, and now, we build a better tomorrow. Sarah and Michael clinked their glasses with his, their eyes reflecting the same hope and determination. Together, they embraced the new stage of their lives, ready to face whatever the future held, confident in the strength of their unbreakable bond. They were arrested and charged with several crimes, including fraud, extortion, and kidnapping. They knew they would spend many years in prison, far from the life of luxury and power to which they were accustomed. Though saddened by his son's fate, David knew it was only fair. They had made the wrong decisions, and now they had to face the consequences. In his heart, however, he held the hope that someday, perhaps, they could find a path to redemption. With Sarah and Michael by his side, David set out to begin a new chapter in his life. He knew it would not be easy, but he was determined to make the most of this second chance life had given him. One day, while relaxing in the garden of Sarah's house, David had a revelation. Throughout his life, he had been looking for happiness and fulfillment in all the wrong places. He had focused on money, success, and the approval of others, neglecting what mattered: love and connection with those who truly loved him. With a smile on his lips and a new peace in his heart, David realized that he had finally found his place in the world. He didn't need great wealth or power to be happy. Everything he needed was right there in the simple, everyday moments, surrounded by the people who loved him unconditionally. As Sarah and Michael joined him in the garden, laughing and enjoying each other's company, David knew he had found his true treasure. With his chosen family by his side, he was ready to face any challenge life threw at him, knowing they could overcome any obstacle together. At that moment, under the warm evening sun, David felt truly at peace. He had learned that happiness is not found in material things or the expectations of others but in love and connection with those who truly matter. With that valuable lesson in his heart, he set out to live the rest of his days with gratitude, love, and hope. It had been several months since David had been discharged from the hospital, and his life had come full circle. He now lived with Sarah and Michael in a beautiful house on the city's outskirts, surrounded by nature and tranquility. Every morning, David woke up with a smile, grateful for the second chance life had given him. He created a routine with Sarah and Michael full of love, laughter, and meaningful moments. They enjoyed long walks in the garden, deep conversations about life and the future, and afternoons filled with games and fun. David had discovered in Sarah and Michael a true family that loved and accepted him unconditionally, regardless of his past or mistakes. With this newfound peace, David embraced daily life with a sense of fulfillment. He appreciated the small moments, watching the sunrise, sharing a meal, listening to the birds sing, and had learned that these moments made life rich and meaningful. As they sat together one evening, watching the sunset, David turned to Sarah and Michael. "Thank you," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You've given me more than I ever thought possible. You've shown me the true meaning of family and love." Sarah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "We're just happy you're with us, Dad. We love you." Michael nodded in agreement, placing a hand on David's shoulder. "Together, we can face anything." David knew this to be true. With his heart full of love and renewed spirit, he was ready to embrace whatever the future held. He had found his true home in the hearts of those who loved him. With them, he could face any challenge and find joy in every moment. And so, under the endless sky, surrounded by the warmth of his chosen family, David lived each day with gratitude, love, and hope, knowing that the best was yet to come. As time went on, David began to heal, not only physically but also emotionally. With the help of therapy and the unconditional support of his loved ones, he gradually let go of the pain and betrayal caused by his other children. He learned to forgive, not because their actions were justifiable, but because forgiveness allowed him to free himself from the burden of resentment and move on with his life. He understood that he could not change the past but could choose how to face the present and future. One day, while David, Sarah, and Michael were enjoying a picnic in the park, they received an unexpected visitor. Lauren, Alexander's ex-wife, had been instrumental in obtaining the evidence against David's children. With tears in her eyes, Lauren approached David and hugged him tightly. "Forgive me for not having done something sooner," she whispered. "I should have intervened when I saw what Alexander, Beatrix, and Charles were doing, but I was afraid of losing everything I had." David, touched by her sincerity, hugged her back. "You don't have to apologize, Lauren. You did the right thing when it mattered most. Thanks to you, I could regain my life and find the happiness I had always sought." Grateful for their understanding, Lauren told them that she had decided to dedicate her life to helping others who had gone through similar situations. She had created a foundation to support dysfunctional families and provide resources for the rehabilitation of people with an addiction. Inspired by her courage and determination, David, Sarah, and Michael joined her cause. Together, they worked tirelessly to create a shelter to provide support, love, and hope to those most needed. Through their work, David found a new purpose in life. It was no longer just about his happiness but about extending it to others, about being a beacon of light in a world that could often be dark and challenging. But David's story still held one last surprise. One afternoon, while looking through some old family photos, Sarah found a letter hidden among the pages of an album. It was a letter from her mother, written shortly before her death. With trembling hands, David opened the envelope and began to read. In the letter, his beloved wife revealed a secret she had kept for years. She had quietly cared for him, ensuring he always had a roof over his head and food on his table, even in the most challenging times. Through a network of friends and neighbors, she had watched over him from the shadows, too ill to be by his side physically but always present in spirit. Now that I know you are in good hands, with Sarah and Michael by your side, I can rest in peace, the letter said. I will love you forever, my dear David. With tears of love and gratitude running down his cheeks, David hugged the letter. All these years, he had been surrounded by love, even when he thought he was alone. His wife, his guardian angel, had been watching over him until the end. With this revelation, David felt he had finally found the peace he had longed for. He had the love of his daughter, the friendship of Michael, and now the certainty that his wife had always been by his side, guiding him to happiness. Looking to the future, David knew that no matter what life threw at him, he would never be alone again. He had a chosen family, a purpose, and the strength to face any challenge that came his way. So, surrounded by laughter, love, and the warmth of a real home, David embraced his new life with a heart full of hope. He had learned that happiness is not found at the end of the road but in every step of the journey, in the moments shared with those we love, and in the ability to find the light even in the darkest of days. With a smile on his lips and Sarah's hand intertwined with his, David looked towards the horizon, excited for the new adventures and moments of happiness that the future held for him. He had found his happy ending and was ready to live it to the fullest, one day at a time. The story is a poignant journey of love, forgiveness, and redemption. It emphasizes the importance of family and the support of loved ones in overcoming life's hardships and pain. A key highlight of the story is the development of David's character. Initially, he sought happiness in material wealth and success. Still, through the painful experiences and betrayal by his children, he realized that true happiness lies in love and connection with those who genuinely care about him. David's learning to forgive, not because his children's actions were justifiable but because forgiveness allowed him to free himself from the burden of resentment, is a profound lesson in maturity and compassion. Michael's loyal friendship and support and Sarah's unwavering love and determination helped David find a new purpose in life. The story also demonstrates the power of unity and love in rebuilding life after traumatic events. Lauren's appearance, Alexander's ex-wife, and her decision to establish a charity to help dysfunctional families add an element of hope and positive change. It shows that even in the most challenging circumstances, people can find the strength to change and help others. Finally, the letter from David's late wife is a touching moment that brings immense comfort. It reminds us that true love never fades and that our loved ones are always with us, even if not physically present. The story is a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and perseverance. It encourages us to cherish the relationships around us and find happiness in everyday life's simple moments. The story leaves a profound message about facing challenges with courage, hope, and the value of living a meaningful and fulfilling life. Overall, the story beautifully illustrates that happiness is not found at the end of the road but in every step of the journey, in moments shared with loved ones, and in finding light even in the darkest days. With a heart full of hope and a newfound appreciation for life, David is ready to embrace whatever the future holds, one day at a time.